All right, so welcome folks, welcome, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Telerik R2 2021 release webinar. We are so glad that you're here. So very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from, and welcome, a warm welcome from all of us here. This is the webinar where we talk about all things web, mobile, and desktop, and we are your hosts, Sam Basu and Ed Charbonneau. And those are our social handles, so you can find us anywhere on the internet, even after we are done with the webinars. We do actually have a small army of folks supporting us in the back room, so please talk to us all through the webinar. So let's get started. First up, we do know that, again, we are all living through a pandemic no matter where you are in the world, so we do hope you and your family are safe and you're taking care and you're trying to be as productive as you can be. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we kind of get started. We are here for developer productivity. We are all developers and we are wanting you to be more successful using our stuff. So we have a lot of things to cover. It was a very big release, so we are excited to bring all of that to you. Now, since it's a lot, so we are trying to maybe do justice to all of the technologies and to make sure we do our due diligence and cover all of the things that you all want to hear. So we are going to break things up a little bit so we can focus better. So today is May 18th, and today you're going to see all things .NET. So all of the Telerik stuff that you know and love, all of the UI component suites, that's what we're going to cover today. And Ed is our resident web expert, and all of you are here to hear Ed and Blazor, and I'm the old guy, I get it. But it's not just going to be Blazor. We do actually have 2 hours, so we will talk about mobile and desktop as well. That's a lot of Xamarin, WinUI, it's super exciting, and all of the other desktop stuff. That's what we'll cover today. And then tomorrow, so normally when we do this all together, I'm told that I speak like an auctioneer and I am rushing towards the end. So we're trying to do a little better. We actually have a separate webinar now, so we can, again, do justice to all the teams who pour in their love and energy in every release. So tomorrow is going to be the webinar for all things productivity, which is all of the things that enterprises do need. It's just not just the UI components, and it all ties in together. So tomorrow we are going to talk about reporting and JustMock and Test Studio and Fiddler. All of you keep asking us, why don't we not talk about Fiddler during our webinars? So we are actually going to talk about Fiddler. There's a lot of exciting things happening on the reporting side, on the Test Studio side. These are essential things for your enterprise workflows, and we are glad to be able to cover it. And as much as what Ed and me would like you to stay with .NET, we do know that some of you will go over to the dark side. I'm kidding. It's all JavaScript. It's all good. So Thursday, May 20th, you're going to have all of our JavaScript developer experts and advocates join you for a full 2-hour all things Kendo UI webinar, and they will cover every nuance and aspect of Kendo UI and all the exciting things that's been done across Angular, Vue, React, and jQuery. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, these are just the formal webinars. We are going to try to cover as much as we can, but sometimes you just want to see us working with the things that we have just built and more in-depth demos and us doing stuff and playing around with the things that we have just cooked up. So for all of that, we're going to go to Twitch, which is a little bit more casual, and you get to hang out with us. It's more interactive. We're going to bring on a ton of people from engineering so they can share their love and their passion as to what they did. So that's going to be something we are going to do all of these 3 days. It's going to be busy for us, but we are hoping you can join us whenever your time permits. So 3 full days where we're going to be live for quite some time on Twitch every day. So here's a quick look at the times. So we are doing this each of those 3 days, 2 times a day. So we are trying to cater to your time zones. Maybe you're in Asia, maybe you're in Europe. So whichever time zone works for you, and we're going to repeat some of these sessions so you can come and hang out with us. So earlier today you saw Angular and React on Twitch. You are going to see me and a few other folks today. Later on in this afternoon, I'm in East Coast time talking about reporting, Fiddler, testing, and mocking. And then tomorrow, Ed and me will be on early in the morning doing Blazor and all of the .NET stuff. Tomorrow's afternoon session is back to Angular and React. And then we end on May 20th, again, with the morning session on reporting, Fiddler, and productivity, and afternoon session is, again, .NET. So, Ed, you excited about all the things we're doing on Twitch?
Of course, I have a lot of projects that I've worked on Twitch over the years and brought on to the webinar, as you'll see today. So if you want to see behind the scenes of all the stuff that goes into the webinar, then tune into our Twitch channel, because we're frequently dog fooding things on there and trying to break new ground.
Absolutely, and all of that is at twitch.tv WAC Coded Live. So come and join us. All right, so just a couple more things. Again, you're here. We appreciate your time. Like I said, this is your time to ask questions. There is a Q&A panel. If you are on social media, then ask with the hashtag #HeyTelerik, so we leave a breadcrumb and we can get back to you. And if for some reason your connection drops or you have to run, we understand. We are recording this, so you can catch this on high definition, hopefully in a couple of days. And it is being recorded, and we'll put it up on our YouTube channels. And we are here to talk about R2, which is actually a big release. We were just talking before we went live of all the goodness that Ed has for Blazor. I'm amazed with the things that the teams did with Xamarin and WinUI and all of the other desktop stuff. There is a lot, and Telerik DevCraft is a big family of products, so you may not be using all of it all together. So if you want specifics, each team puts up a post to say, here's what's new, so go check that out. It's on blogs.telerik.com. That gives you a rundown of all the things that are new across each of the products. And everything that we talk about, and I talk about these things, same things every release, but it's important because what we are showing you is the latest and greatest stuff. So update whatever you're using, however you're getting stuff through NuGet, through the control panel, through straight up download, however you get our stuff, go and update those things, and it will light up for your projects and the stuff that you're working on. Okay, so that's, I think, all the housekeeping I had. Two more quick things, and actually one thing I do want to point out, because it kind of stretches all across our stuff. We talk about this all the time. We really care about your experience with documentation, with demos, so you're never left in the cold as to how you want to do something, and we are always listening. So feedback@telerik.com. So please talk to us. And this one is something we are quite excited about, and this stretches all across all of our products, UI components and testing, reporting, and Fiddler, everything. We are professional developers, which I don't know how Ed rolls, but I copy and paste code. I do that a lot because we learn from each other, and it's very likely that what we are encountering, our roadblock, is something somebody else has already seen. So we get to collaborate and we learn from each other. So we have a forums, which has been very popular. Lots and lots of members and lots of active conversations and people answering questions, not just our teams, but just the community as well. So we gave the forums a complete redo. So it's super clean, it's super nice UX, very easy to kind of drill down, and the threads are answer-based, and we kind of gamified it a little bit. So kind of think of it as your reputation. The more you answer, the more your reputation grows. We give you things to cheer. So Ed, you excited about this?
I am, and Sam, I do copy and paste code. I just don't copy and paste your code.
I know. So folks, that's where Dev Warriors hang out. So Telerik.com forums. So come and join us if you're ever, I mean, don't ever be stuck, right? So there are the support tickets, there are the forums. Go get some help if you are stuck. Okay, so with that, I'm 8 minutes in. So Ed, take it away for all things web.
All right, Sam. As Sam mentioned, I'm going to cover all things web for .NET. So if you want to catch those JavaScript frameworks, go ahead and sign up for the webinar for the Kendo UI. That's in a couple days from now. For today, we're going to be talking about all of the .NET frameworks. There we go. Which covers ASP.NET, AJAX, MVC, .NET Core, of course, Blazor. Accidentally left Test Studio on there from earlier. We're not going to talk about Test Studio today because we have a whole other webinar for that, as Sam mentioned as well. But before we get started on all these wonderful web topics, we have a quick poll for you. So we want to ask about which of these frameworks that you're using and that type of thing. So we'll let that poll go for just a second, and then we'll get on with the show.
There we go, that came up.
There we go.
Of all the web thingies, folks, what are you planning on using?
You know, we've got a lot of WinForms developers out there. We've got MVC and ASP.NET Core, and those are very similar. And then we've got Blazor, the whole new thing that doesn't require any JavaScript at all. So kind of curious, with all these great technologies, which one are you going to pick for your next project?
All right, going in 5 seconds. Well, 3, 2, 1, go. That was quick.
All right,
All
looks
right.
like we got the screen back here. We're going to start with a little bit of ASP.NET AJAX. This is a framework that has been just reliable for almost 20 years now. And we've been building great web forms applications with it. And we always want to make sure that our AJAX developers are happy with new components. So we've added a new switch component this time around. Switch component is really great for those settings screens that allow your user to customize an application, toggling things in report views, all sorts of nice little UX interactions where you need to toggle something on and off. So we have a brand new switch for you. We also have a lot of improvements on our Gantt controls. So we have templates and plan versus actual baked in with our Gantt controls now. So you're able to template those Gantts, put things in them like images and all sorts of customizations. And why don't we go ahead and just jump out to demos.telerik.com and take a look at the new components. When we go to demos.telerik.com, it's important to remember when you scroll down that we highlight all the new stuff in green. So you'll see new components popping up in each release, but also in things like Blazor, where there are newer frameworks and we're moving at lightning speed to get new components. You'll see those things pop up even throughout the month as service packs. So make sure you check back at demos.telerik.com and look for these green badges from time to time. So let's go ahead and click over to the Gantt chart, and you can see we've got our updated functionality here, where we've added the plan versus actual into the component. So you can do some good measurements of what your target is versus how you're performing. This is super handy. We've also got client templates, so you can customize these views as much as possible. And these use the typical templating features that you find in ASP.NET AJAX. So it should be very intuitive and easy to add these things to your Gantt charts. And it's nice to be able to put images and special formatting and those type of things into your components there. And then we'll go over to our new switch component as well. This is a super, intuitive component here. It's just a toggle of a Boolean value. It's on or it's off. These are really great if you have some type of place where you're customizing your client's experience. So you log in, maybe you want to turn the theme from light to dark, or have a special setting that you want to turn on and off in your in each user's individual settings. Those are super great for that. So it's nice to see that our AJAX suite just keeps improving. Again, it's been around for nearly 20 years now. I've built amazing things with it, and it's very productive. Telerik UI for ASP.NET, MVC, and Core. I put these together because for the most part, all of the components that you see in MVC are also available in Core. The only real difference between the two products is Core can run on multiple platforms, so you can host a ASP.NET Core app on Linux. You also have tag helpers in ASP.NET Core, but for all intents and purposes today, most of the components that you see here, or all the components you see here, are available on both platforms. So I've kind of put those two together to make things a little bit easier and a little less redundant. We have some huge updates here. So we have a brand new TaskBoard component. So you can think of this as a Trello or a GitHub Tasks type of experience. but it's something that you can completely customize and build into your own application, host it with your own data inside of your own application shell. So you're in full control over it. We'll take a look at that in some demos in just a minute. We also have a really neat skeleton component. The skeleton component is a loader that gives you a preview of what data is typed or what view is loading in the background. So it gives a nice UX feel to things that are coming up on the page. We'll take a deep dive into that one as well. We have an action sheet, which is nice for mobile, and a brand new circular gauge. The grid has a new data range selection feature as well. We'll definitely have to take a look at this one. It's simply amazing. The editor has improvements with image resizing. TreeList has filter row and row templates. So we keep expanding those data-rich components here as well. The scheduler has hierarchical grouping, year with view, and a 24-hour event display. So the scheduler is one of our more popular components, and we give that thing a lot of attention. A lot of these are customer suggestions, by the way. We take our customer feedback very seriously and put that into the product. We have Swiss QR code as well. So this is for a Swiss payment system standardization. So you can add that functionality to your application as well. You can even embed logos within your QR codes now to make them brand customized for your company. We have hierarchical items in the drawer. So the drawer component's a really nice navigation component that hides away when you're not using it. And we added hierarchical menu items in there so you can navigate through your whole application nice and easy. That was something I personally had to build as a custom feature in the past. Now it's built in and ready for you out of the box. We also added Azure Maps support for our map component for Core and MVC. And for ASP.NET Core, if you're developing on a Linux machine, we have an installer for Linux now. So we have installers for all the major platforms now. So if you're doing dev on a Mac, on Linux, on Windows, we have you covered with installers for everything.
And Ed, hats off to folks who are using Linux as their desktop. That is hardcore. And good for you. We want to enable you. Yeah, why not? And that Swiss QR code, that is a big deal. So I'll actually talk a little bit more about that, and you'll see that across like 4 or 5 different products, and it is a big deal. So we'll talk about it more. Yeah,
it's a very nice feature to have baked right in. Those things that enable you to work with government and enable you to work with payment systems and those things without having to write custom code is absolutely fantastic. Let's talk about cross-platform just a little bit more for a second as well. The cross-platform story continues with .NET. The .NET 6 previews are out. We're currently on preview 3 and expecting another one to ship soon. I would imagine around build, we'll probably see another preview ship. It's been about a month since we've had one, so there's got to be one coming pretty soon. That cross-platform story is still there though, and it's getting even stronger. And with ASP.NET Core, we have compatibility with the latest preview of .NET 6. So if you're interested in .NET 6, make sure you check that out. If you do run into any issues, just let us know in our forums, support, or chat, so we can get on top of that and make sure that we have everything ready when .NET 6 does launch.
So Ed, you did mention this, but we are at an interesting time here, folks. We have had, like Ed said, .NET 6 previews drop almost every month, and the last one was preview 3, and preview 4 is ready in bits and pieces. If you look closely, you can see some of the nightly things, but they're holding on to it until build. Microsoft build is next week, so please tune in, and you're going to see some .NET love.
Yeah, we won't get into it too much here today. At least I don't have anything ready to go, but we are actively looking into Blazor Hybrid, which is a really cool technology that lets Blazor run pretty much in any scenario, web, desktop, mobile. So keep your eye out for that at Build. We will be watching that very closely as well and testing things behind the scenes. We may be able to talk about that on our Twitch shows this week. That we have scheduled after the webinar. Again, at demos.telerik.com, make sure you look for these green badges. We'll also jump into Visual Studio here in a minute and test some stuff as well. But I just want to walk through the TaskBoard real quick and take a look at some of the functionality here, because this is an absolutely just mind-blowing, well-integrated component. I mean, we have those features that you see in the major applications like Trello, but this is something that you can write custom for your own application. Keep it in your VPN, behind your firewall, all of those things totally custom within your organization. So we can do things like add a brand new column. We can add new items and drag and drop items between those columns. We've got badges that can show progression, how many items are in the list, for example. This is all just something that you can mold into a task reporting system for your application. Now imagine this with something like our Gantt component as well. Think of the types of apps that you can build with the Gantts and the tasks working together and driving those type of agile platforms that you might be building, or those program management style applications that you may be thinking of putting in your organization. The individual cards have context menus as well, so you can add edit, delete functionality and customizations here as well. Again, we have drag and drop. We can add new cards and remove columns. It's just a really robust tool that you can take and run with for your app. We also have several ways to bind data. You can use tag helpers in ASP.NET Core to build these as well. So you have that HTML-like experience with the .NET Core development that you'd expect from rich UI components like this. And of course, we always include templates with all of these things. This goes for pretty much every platform that we support. We always include templates, so you can customize all the various bits of these components and make them unique to your experience. Validation, you can tap into event systems. It's basically just yours to go run and build whatever your business needs are. Let's jump back over to the core demos again for a second. We have the new action sheet that I talked about, but we didn't really get to see this one in context. So action sheet is a very mobile-centric type of a menu. This gives us a nice pop-up type of context menu that comes up at the bottom of a device. So this is a nice quick way to access menus in your application. So if you're building mobile responsive applications, or maybe mobile first web applications, the action sheet's a really good way to get interactive menus with your application. And then of course we have the brand new circular gauge as well. I talk about customization a lot. I think that's one of the things that makes us really unique, is we're able to give you components that you can mold into whatever that you would like. The gauge component here has lots of options to do just that. So if we go under scale options here, you can see some of the things that are included for customization. So we can include labels, we can control where those labels show up in that gauge as well. You can reverse clockwise or counterclockwise. And then you can even show the different tick marks and at what intervals you'd like to show those tick marks. So this is a great example of a component that you can really take and put in your application and make your application unique with. And I'll show in Blazor, we have a radial or arc and circular gauge as well. And I've got some unique uses for those in an application demo for you. Let's jump over to Visual Studio for a minute so we can actually look at some live code here. I want to talk about our skeleton component that we just added to ASP.NET Core and MVC. The skeleton component is the one that we saw in the slides there. It shows you a nice loading animation for some type of content in your application. So in this loading animation, you can see there's some sort of card that's being loaded in, and I'm going to use this toggle, this simple switch here, to turn on and off that loading animation. So you can see how this might be used in your application. So essentially, what we are doing with the skeleton system is we give you animations and CSS classes that you can use in your markup that will mimic the building blocks of various components that you might want to show that are loading. So for example, in this card, we have the ability to shape these skeleton components into a circle to represent the avatar that's loading, and then various bars to show where the content is going to appear in this component. So if we toggle this back off, you can see how it kind of represents the skeleton of the thing that is about to be loaded. So if we go over to our code for this, let's get out of the Blazor app and go over to the right view here. The skeleton portion of the component is made up of HTML and CSS classes. So we have a div container here with a card component that is going to look just like the card that will be loaded in. We have some special attributes we're attaching here as well. And then this card component as a whole is loaded into a Kendo skeleton container tag helper. So we're going to reference the template that I just showed you above that represents the card that will be loading in the background. And we will set the animation type for it here. And we have a name for that component that we can access through client-side scripting to turn on and off, make visible when it's loading, and then hide it away when it's not loading. So in this very simple example, instead of showing something loading and pretending that we've got data loading in the background, I've just hooked it up to a simple switch so I can manually toggle it on and off, so I can show you what it looks like between the loading and loaded content. Then I have pretty much an exact copy of the card that does get loaded in with the data applied to the card. So you can see the data is hard-coded here, but this would normally be coming from some sort of data source that has a longer loading time in the background. So again, we'll just take the switch here and toggle those items on and off. Just show and hide those nice and easy there. And if we go back to the browser, you can see that again. This is our skeleton card that is loaded into that template, that Kendo skeleton component, and we'll just toggle that on and off with the loaded content. So we'll hide that skeleton away, show the loaded card, and it makes a really nice user experience. So imagine these in a scenario where you have some virtualization, maybe there's lots of cards that are being loaded dynamically as you're scrolling. You don't want a jarring like pop of cards just showing up out of nowhere. You can scroll and show these nice skeleton UI components and bring in the data as it comes. And then again, that same example, if we go back to our demos page here. See if we can get back to the main area. If we go up to the data grid, we have some new features here. Let's see if I can find it. I don't know where I saw this earlier now. Give me 1 second. We have the skeleton functionality built into the data grid, which is what I was trying to show you here. Let's see if I can grab it. Nope, there we don't have it. All right, won't waste a bunch of time on that. It is something that you can enable on the data grid as well. So when the data grid is loading data, you'll see those skeleton bars showing up on each individual row that's being loaded. So that is now also baked into the data grid. Along with that, you did see some new features here. We do have server-side exporting, and this really awesome feature that I foreshadowed a little bit in the slides. This is a really interesting and intuitive approach to getting data out of your data grid. So what we can do with this selection and export here, as you can see, I have a context menu I can pop up here where I can copy and export data. But what's nice is I can come into this grid, and there we go. I can select a range of data, and then I can come up to my menu here, and I can say export to chart. And just the items that I dragged across and selected are showing up in this chart. So if I come back here again and I select just 2 rows, for example, and I say export with headers, I'll get an Excel file that I can open up in Microsoft Excel, and it's just the 2 rows that I selected.
This
so
is
it doesn't
sweet.
have to be.
Yeah, especially the thing where, no, I was just going to say, like, the showing of the charts of your selected data, that is sweet.
And if I can get this to work, there we go. You can even select individual pieces of data. You don't have to select the entire row itself. Let's see if I did that right. There we go. Just that column of data showed up. So this goes on a cellular basis as well. So that's not, it's not hard-coded to select the entire row. You can kind of do this ad hoc and select individual cells. Whatever it is you're trying to get access to, you can get in and out of your app very easily with that. And they don't have to be consecutive rows either. You can skip rows and so on. And it's it's a very intuitive thing for users to just be able to poke at something on the screen, hit a button, and get the data that they just saw represented in either Excel or a chart or something like that. So once again, this release has been absolutely fantastic with really cool new features that I know people are going to enjoy.
Hey, Ed, so before you switch to Blazor, just maybe a couple of quick questions here. Simon Cholkanov was asking if the TaskBoard made it to Angular, which I don't know. We could go look, and that maybe is on Thursday.
It did. I believe TaskBoard, I think TaskBoard was in the Angular. So if you go to Telerik.com and click on the Angular product and choose Roadmap What's New, if you're watching, you're interested in seeing what's new with Angular, you can go there and get a preview of what is coming with Angular in this release. I won't spoil their party too much, but it is their 100th component party. So they're going to have 100 components this release. And another reason you might want to come here is these, if they don't exist in the current framework you're working in, for example, Blazor, you will eventually see these components come. So it's a nice place to go look and see if there's something in there that's really that really interests you, and you can let us know so we can help form the roadmap for other products as well.
Okay, really quick, Ed, yeah. Todd Hillehofer was asking if we are supporting tag helpers in the Razor pages.
Tag helpers in Razor pages. If you're using ASP.NET ASP.NET Core, yes, we have tag helpers and Razor pages supported.
Cool. And you gotta love our developer audiences here, and we have the same questions. Tom Message is asking, are you done with Visual Studio 2022 support? Yes and no, because it's too early days, but the exciting part is it's 64-bit. We are all looking forward to it. So super early days. So Microsoft is working, and we are working closely with them. So we shall see. But it's very unlikely that Visual VS22 ships and we don't have support for it, right? So just stay on the lookout.
Yeah, we do have lots of integration with Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. So if you're thinking about what Visual Studio 2022 is going to be like, just take a look at what we've done with the current version. And again, if there's anything in there or not in there that you want to see added to Visual Studio 2022, please let us know. If you don't tell us, we don't know to build it all the time. We do some pretty good dog fooding and imagining of what users might need, but the best suggestions for components actually come from you all. So if we get things on our feedback forums at feedback.telerik.com, we take those very seriously and try to integrate those things in our roadmaps. And just to answer the tag helper question one more time, the tag helper example, or the skeleton example that I just showed, used the tag helper in ASP.NET Core. I didn't use a Razor page here. I could have. I just went a little old school with the MVC approach and used Razor View. But this skeleton container that I used is a tag helper. So we do fully support tag helpers in the components there. You can see in our docs section, we have an HTML helper and a tag helper heading for all of the components in the suite. And that covers the whole gambit of our components as well. So you won't typically find a HTML helper that doesn't have a tag helper. There should be a parity there. There may be like one outlier just for a specific thing, but I can't think of off the top of my head where we don't support a tag helper where there's an HTML helper. Let's talk about Blazor. We have a lot to talk about with Blazor. We have so many new components here. We're up to 75 or more components for Blazor now. It's an exciting new framework. Lets you write really amazing applications without writing JavaScript. I'm really a big fan of that concept and Blazor itself. We've been working on this for several years now, and it's moving along at just lightning speed. Team's doing a fantastic job just dropping all kinds of new bits at a steady pace. Some of the things that you'll see here, you might have seen throughout the last month or so as we drop new bits in between releases, but we have some really cool stuff to share today.
And the price to the trip to moon isn't that much. I mean, you're almost enticing me.
It's getting cheaper, I heard, Sam. Now, this is a fun little app that I wrote. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but it shows off some of the new components. So we'll take a look at that application soon. We have a panel bar. This is something that that our customers were really wanting to get their hands on. So we have the panel bar in Telerik UI for Blazor now. The card component. We'll jump into demos for the card component because it sounds like something that is simple. It's something that you've seen in frameworks like Bootstrap, but we take it so far beyond what you can do with a simple, couple CSS styles like Bootstrap does. You'll be pretty surprised at what a card component really can look like. We have a media query component that's really just takes a unique spin on how to manage responsive and adaptive behaviors in your application. So if you're targeting multiple device sizes, this is a really cool component for you. The circular gauge, as you can see here, we'll jump into a demo on that. So many uses for the circular gauge. I found a real unique one that I'm going to show you today. We have other gauges as well with the linear and radial gauges, arc gauge, similar to the circle gauge, it's just half the circle gauge, and a color palette picker. There is a color palette picker in native HTML, but again, we take it beyond the simple UIs that you get in the browser. So we'll take a look at that as well. The form component is one that came in between releases. This is a really productive component. So it's not just a normal form. What you can do is take a model and pass it to the form component, and the form component will populate the form based on the model. So you don't have to go in there and write all that HTML for labels and inputs. You just point it at the model, and it looks at the model and pulls the properties off of it and gives you those inputs that you need, and they're contextually aware of what data types they are. So you'll get the right, date pickers and numeric inputs and those type of things. And forms wouldn't be complete without validations. We've taken the basic Blazor validation and gone all above and beyond that and offered some additional validation components to give them more cohesive style with the Telerik UI components. We've got more than just new things. We've got lots of updates as well. As you can see in the little animation here, we've got drag and drop capabilities in between data grids now. So you can drag rows throughout the grids. We have multi-column headers. So if you want to group headings in the grid, you can do that. We have fit column to width, Excel-like editing. So if you're doing a lot of data entry on the data grid, that's perfect. You can just tab between cells and save multiple rows and that type of thing. Checkbox filtering is something that we've had in the grid before, but this allows you to add multiple checkbox filters. This is another Excel-like feature where you can click on a filter and check multiple pieces of data that you'd like to filter by, and it's all data that's coming from that data point or that column in your data set. The calendar component, we added templates, so you can add like icons to each individual day on the calendar, that sort of thing, and new events as well for customizing each individual piece of that calendar. The drop-down list has gotten filtering. We have added predefined dialog boxes. So those usual dialogues that you see in the browser that come up at the top of the screen, and quite frankly, every time you see one, they look kind of scary because you're not sure if it's something you're supposed to click on. The ones that are like confirmation dialogues and input dialogues, we've taken those and made them more application specific by making components for them that are Blazor components that have the look and feel of the Telerik UI components. So they don't look like system dialogues anymore. And they're fully, customizable by you. The window component can be stacked and dragged and dropped now. So you can have multi-window interfaces going on in your applications. The editor can copy and paste image. It's supposed to be paste, copy and paste images, and it does paste cleanup and highlighting as well. So the editor got big improvements here, and then all of our drop-down style components, the multi-select, drop-down list, combo box, those have virtualization now. There's lots and lots of new things, so we should just go in and look at some demos for a few minutes and check out all the new stuff. Where to begin
And
with all this? You
no,
have something to
actually,
say, Sam?
no, actually, you go ahead with the demos, because these are important things I want you to make sure you have the time to cover, and then we'll maybe circle back for some questions.
Yeah, again, this is something that customers really wanted, is this panel bar. It's a nice piece of navigation. It's a good way to hide and show information very rapidly. So you can collapse these accordion style UI components. And you can see here you have control over disabling them. There's templating. As you can see, we've got images in here. You can use these for navigating throughout your app or doing parent-child views, those type of things. It's a great way for getting in there and selecting some data, and a very hierarchical way to do that. The card component. The card component, again, just goes well beyond what you think of with a card component. So it has this idea of building blocks. So we have all of the different sections that you might see in a card user interface. So we have a header, an image, body, actions, footer, title, and subtitle. These are all things that you can add to your card. They're template areas that are predefined and easy to use. So it's kind of like a set of Legos for doing card UIs. So you can make really nice cards like this, and not have to worry about how to get the image to work properly in the card and do all of that type of stuff that you'd normally have trying to just write this with pure CSS. The action buttons are built in as well. So if you want to add actions to your card, you can do that. There's another example of it here. You might want to add sharing. We have icons in the framework. Just throw that on your action button and it's ready to go. The cards can be oriented in different ways. So if you want to have the card a vertical style card, you can do that, or a little bit more atypical card with a different horizontal style layout. So you want to put the image on the side, lay things out that way. That's built in as well. I talked about actions. We've got our action bars, and those are even customizable as well if you want to stack those, go horizontally, etc. Let's see here, layouts, that's what I was looking for. Not only can you lay them out internally left to right, but you can also arrange them on a card basis of how they're going to list out in your application. So if you're maybe you're on mobile, you want these to show up in a list, you can put them in a single column list like that. You can group them together, or you can lay them out side by side. So there's a lot of ways to arrange these in your UI as well. And of course, you can totally customize the colors and theme these with your application if you wanted to show like warning dialogues, those type of things in a card format. Speaking of dialogues, this is one of the things that came in an intermediate release, so it doesn't have a badge on it, I don't believe, but it is brand new to the release as a whole. So if we go to dialogues, these are those dialog boxes again. These are a lot more user-friendly, in my opinion, than the native JavaScript or DOM-based dialogues that come up at the top of the screen. So these look a little bit less intimidating for the user. They look like your application. They feel like your application. So they have a lot more cohesive feel to your app. So those are included as a very simple API. If we look at the code for this, all we have to do is call await dialogues and then tell the application what type of dialogue we would like to show. So we don't even need to add a specific component to the page, what we need to do is just call this API and display the dialog that we'd like to display. So it's very easy to get those in the application. Let's see here, where did they go? Color palettes. Again, this goes above and beyond the basic HTML color picker. So this is a color picker that is templatable, customizable. You can define the color ranges, the individual colors that you would like to add to the color palette. You can change the type of layout the color palette has, the amount of tiles that you want to show on the screen, and so on. You can preset the colors. This is something that is very important here, that you don't get out of the box with just standard HTML. So you can provide the colors that are displayed in this palette. It's also validation and, of course, accessibility throughout all of the components. We have keyboard navigation as well. I just want to make quick mention here. If you go to demos.telerik.com, make sure you check out the Blazing Coffee Warehouse app. This is something we added in the last release, but it's a fantastic line of business example that you can see what a full Blazor application would look like. There's very minimal, if almost no JavaScript in that application whatsoever, which is one of the main selling points to Telerik UI for Blazor, is that you don't have to write JavaScript to do all of these wonderful things. Also want to point out one of these green badges here. We have a brand new demo for Telerik reporting. So this is our reporting integration demo. So if you're a customer that's using or wanting to use or is using Telerik UI for Blazor, and you have Telerik UI or Telerik report server, this is showing a really deep integration between those two products. So we have the report viewer for Telerik UI for Blazor, and this demo shows how you can integrate the native UI components and the reporting components together. If I come into this data grid here and I want to do a report on, say, there are different types of products here. You can see we have some different types of water bottles and things. If I want to take and report just on bottles, I can come up to my search bar, type in bottles or bottle, click report, and I'm going to get a report based on that search criteria that I just saw in my Blazor component, now in my my Telerik report. And I can drill into these reports. I can see the individual items. I can have reports based off of that same data and show graphs on that sales data, even generate presentations on that data as well. So that is just, that blew my mind when I saw it, because I'm not working with reporting as much as some of the folks here, and I don't get to see these things when they're being built. So I saw it in its complete form, and I was just astonished at the capabilities of it. So really cool to see these things get mashed up, where we can go into a native Blazor application, do some filtering, and then jump over to Telerik reporting within the same application and have that data passed on to reporting so it can do its reporting functionality. So great demo there. You can catch that off the main demo page at demos.telerik.com. Scroll down to the reporting section right there. It's highlighted with a green badge for now.
Indeed, and we're going to talk more about that when we cover reporting tomorrow, and maybe even later today on Twitch. And Ed, I wanted to mention the Blazor demos that you showed off. I really like the fact that they're also PWAs, they're progressive web apps, so you can install them on your mobile or your desktop.
Absolutely. So I'm starting to get up against the final minutes here, so I'm going to show one more demo before I go. This is the circular gauge, and I want to show the I want to show the responsive component as well in context with the circle gauge. So I'm going to run my application that is here in Visual Studio, and I've got my Blazor application. This is one of my dog fooding projects that I'm working on stream all the time. So it's mashing up a lot of .NET technologies. It's got Cosmos DB, it's got modern HTML and Sass, it's got Telerik UI components. It has all the things. It has machine learning. I threw it all in there. The whole kitchen sink's here. So the idea is this is a rideshare application of the future, and we're going to take a trip. You can see various Telerik UI components here. This is a window component with a Telerik form, and I have my Telerik date picker. We can go ahead and pick a date. We can pick up the passenger count. Sam, you want to come with me? We're going to go somewhere. We're going to go to Mars.
Sure.
Let's
One
depart
rating.
from Earth. We have drop-down boxes that are completely templated. You can even see spinning planets inside of those drop-down boxes. We'll go ahead and select Mars from this one. Then we'll hit submit here. And now we have our Telerik radial gauge, and it's being used as a countdown clock. So you can see the various radial gauges here. This is the time span from the date that we just picked from our calendar. So if I hit edit trip, we can see that date again. I picked a day in advance when I selected that, and you can see it counting down the seconds until liftoff with the radial gauge. So that radial gauge, we'll talk about how that was added in just a second. But I want to show a little bug here. This is a somewhat responsive app, but this cluster of gauges probably isn't ideal for a mobile device. I probably want to shrink that down into another type of UI for mobile users. Maybe even something that doesn't include a radial gauge, just some plain text there might be better for a mobile experience. So we'll do that in just a second. The radial gauges, to make those count down time, was actually very simple. So I added a set of Telerik radial gauges. I templated that center piece to describe what it's showing. So we have days here, and it's pulling the day value off of the item that is bound to the radial gauge. So we're getting the day value and then showing the word days next to it. That puts it in the center of that radial gauge. The scale of the radial gauge, since we're talking about days here, the range is 0 to 365. And the value is, again, that same day value. And as we go through this, you'll see that these are very similar. These are just describing the different hours. There's 24 hours in a gauge in a day, so we assign 24 hours to the gauge, 60 minutes in an hour, and 60 seconds in a minute. So we just set those up appropriately and apply the values from that time span to the gauge, and it makes it show the current time span until liftoff. And then I'm going to run a loop over a counter. So every couple seconds, or every second in this case, it's going to do that evaluation on the time span again. And when it does that reevaluation of the time span, it'll change the tickers to correspond to the time span. Let's talk about the display portion of it, though. When I shrink down that screen, when I want to view this on a mobile device, we can even pull up a simulator here. I can do inspect, and we'll say, give me an iPhone 10, for example. That doesn't look ideal. I want to swap that circular gauge with something else. So we have a brand new component here that I can use that will detect the screen size, and it will let me change the type of components that are shown per the screen size that I assigned it. So I've added a Telerik media query component, and the media query I'm going to I'm going to inspect for is min width of 1200 pixels. So if I am below 1200 pixels, this will be false. And if I'm above 1200 pixels, this will be true. And then I have an event that triggers when we cross this breakpoint. So when there's this change event happens, I'm going to assign the Boolean flag is large to whatever the matched value is. So the true or false Boolean value there. And then I can change my display based on that value. So I need to come down here and add that, that flag. So we'll add the is large property here. And now when we cross that threshold, we'll set that value, changing our display. So now I need to take and put the large display inside of this if statement and the small display inside the else statement. So we'll throw some regular span tags in here with some CSS styling on them. I'll save that. Then we'll go back to our application and reload it and see how it responds to the different screen sizes. So we've built that application. We'll come back and reload it in the iPhone screen here. We have to start a new trip because the app reset. But now you can see I have a different countdown clock on a small device. We'll go ahead and go back to the desktop here. You can see I have my gauges back. And as I cross that breakpoint, you can see the gauges loading versus the text loading. So I can go all the way down to a small screen size, or I can come back to a desktop size and customize or adapt the UI to what the user has real estate for on their screen. So that is a really cool component for me. I love adaptive and responsive design. I think it makes your apps really shine on mobile, and it's something that you can easily add to your application. As you saw, it's just a single component that ties to a Boolean flag. You can also customize that event to do other things. You can change widths of different components, things like that. But one of the really interesting places it shines is just swapping out UIs when you don't have space for those. You can imagine having a data grid. You can turn columns on and off, that type of thing, at different screen sizes. So with that, let's have one more poll question and we'll hand it off to Sam.
This is a good one. And this is something that you will likely hear me and Ed talk about quite a bit on our streams because it's exciting. Blazor is eating the world for obvious reasons, and it's exciting for web devs, but could we bring a little bit of Blazor love to mobile and desktop as well? So very early days with Microsoft, and we are exploring. So we just want to know if any of you are interested. And I mean, this might be a way for you to mix and match some web technologies with desktop stuff and potentially modernize or migrate some of your desktop applications. And again, I will talk about desktop. Nothing is going away. It's just a matter of code sharing and doing more.
There's some really nice migration stories here as well. These things can coexist in the future in the same application. So if you're not ready to go all in on Blazor, but you want to add some of the things that you saw in the component suite to your existing WinForms or WPF application, that is something that might be possible in the near future. And I think that is just awesome and cool, and I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, and then the response here, it's a mixed bag, which is exactly what we are expecting. So again, do what makes sense. For if you don't have any desktop apps, more power to you. But if you do, then you can mix and match, hopefully, going forward. So
that's all for me, Sam. I'm going to hand it off to you now. And as you get
hang on. Don't go yet. Well, I mean, we are going to make Ed hang out with me because I hang out with you, right? Just maybe a couple of questions here. I know some of our PMs for Blazor were around, so these may have already been answered, but I will pose them to you anyways. Do you know about, so John Eckermanis and a few other folks were asking, do you know about File Manager and File Explorer stuff in Blazor?
For Blazor, I don't have a roadmap schedule that I can talk about here. If you want to see those components, if you're not aware of what we're talking about right now, if you go over to the AJAX suite, you can see a file manager component that lets you essentially manage files in an application, much like you would on the desktop, but inside of your application on its own. Maria would have to answer that. She's our program manager for Blazor, but I don't have a timetable that I'm aware of to let them know now.
Sure. Randy Hodges is asking kind of a generic and a good question here. What does it mean for components to be virtualized? So Ed, I'll let you go answering this, and I want to chime in as well, because you're going to see a lot of virtualization as we go into mobile and desktop as well.
Yeah, so the idea behind virtualization is you have a massive amount of data that you are binding to a component like a data grid or a data list view, or even a dropdown, and it's more data than you should be throwing at the user at one time for a few reasons. One of those reasons is performance. So you don't want to shove 10,000 records down the connection if you don't need all 10,000 records at one point in time, which generally speaking, you probably don't. So what you do is you give them, say, a page of 10 records. Instead of having a pager at the bottom of the data grid or the dropdown or whatever interface you have, as they scroll, you load in the data as they need it. So you try to detect at what page they're on by the view that they're seeing, and then you lazy load in the next 10 records right before they need them. That's essentially what you're doing with virtualization. And this can go horizontally as well with the data grid. So if you have columns that go for days, they can only physically see and read, maybe 15 columns on a screen at one time. So you don't want to load 15,000 columns. You just want to load the 15. And as they scroll left to right, you bring in the additional columns that they may be able to view at that point in time.
Indeed, indeed. So let me take control back from you, Ed, and maybe go into some of the other stuff here. And share screen. There you go. We are up. And apologies for being a little distracted here, because right as we started, Ed asked me if I had any suggestions for cooking spray containers. So I have been distracted all through. But no, it's all good. All right, hopefully you can see my screen, and we are back. So folks, if you were here to learn about what's happening with Xamarin and what's happening with WPF and WinForms and WinUI, now is the hour, right? So thank you for patiently waiting while we got through all of that web stuff that nobody wills for. No, I'm kidding. It's all good. It's all good. Let's talk about mobile and desktop. Okay, so I have about 50 minutes. We'll try to keep a little bit of time here for Q&A. And yeah, let's dive in. A lot of exciting things going on. I am really impressed with some of the things we did this release, because it's not just about sometimes just the quality or the number of components. It's about the care we are putting in, the attention to detail in those little things in our documentation, in our demos that really shines. So I'm really proud of what the engineering teams did this release. So let's talk about mobile. And a couple of initial things which you all know. We have Telerik UI for Xamarin. Xamarin kind of makes it super easy for .NET developers to make apps for iOS or Android or other platforms to run on. So we have been doing this for quite some time, and we want to cater to whatever type of Xamarin development you want to do, be it Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android, or Xamarin Forms. We have components for you. And again, some of this is common to other suites as well, but we really don't care. Like Windows or Mac, we want to enable you to have the same experience. great getting started experience with templates and NuGet packages and some nice starter templates that we get you, and lots and lots of help, demo apps and sample apps, so you can actually see how we envision our UI being rendered, and then you get to go do your thing. So take a look at UI for Xamarin. I will show you some of the sample apps and what's new in it. So straight out the gate, two very, very interesting controls that we did that kind of span all across the UI suite. So first thing is badges. These are little things, but they make such an impact in terms of UX on a mobile device in particular. It is all about, the key is to keep your users engaged and inviting them back into doing something or clicking on something or tapping on something, right? So it's those small notification icons, and you can put them on just about everything, as we will see. Usually in a corner of any type of UI component that you might have. It's subtle, but it's very inviting if you use it right. So we give you a whole bunch of probably about 10 to 12 predefined badges that you can just throw in, or you can actually customize and do whatever you want to do with your badges, and you can position them however you want. They're little animations. You can see the button here on the bottom here. It's animating in and out a little bit, so you can do that, and you can control the scaling and the easing. And again, the badges are there for you to do whatever. You can have icons in them, you can have text in them, you can change the styling of the text and the radius of how big or small that badge looks like. So very excited about this, because you really can put this on any type of other UI component that you're using. So let's move on to the next thing. And these are such subtle things, but they're so beautifully done. Shadow, right? When we talk about like how iOS started back in the days with like skeuomorphism, and now it's much more evolved to a little bit more realistic, but at the same time digital. So you're seeing neomorphism kind of show itself across material themes that Google is doing, Cupertino or Fluent that Microsoft is doing. Every one of those design systems kind of embrace this model, and shadowing is a big part of how you make things a little realistic. So I'm super glad that we have this baked in now, and it works across all of the component suites, all of the UI controls that we have. And it's one of the most heavier request features that we have had on the feedback portals. So welcome to RadScheduler. It's a common UX, like I said, and some of the most common ways are things you can put it on are buttons and list view items and controls, things in an input control. You can control, it's very customizable. So the API is really well thought out and kind of makes you feel welcome with everything else that you're using. So the color, the positioning, transparency, I will show you some of these things. The radii, you can change all of that. You can customize the look and feel for iOS and Android. So very excited about this. It's very nuanced, but it makes such a difference in terms of your UI for your application, that you can add a shadow to just about everything now. All right, so the Swiss QR code. Ed mentioned this really quickly, but this is a big deal, especially if you're in the EU. Switzerland is trying to do something which is more of a standard, and it works right now in Switzerland. And one of my beloved little countries, Liechtenstein, which is just a small little country in between Austria and Switzerland and Germany. And they have a new QR bill. Essentially, it's a single way for you to issue and issue an invoice and get paid for it, because it encapsulates all of the payment information that you need. So somebody could issue you an invoice, and also you could get paid with all of your bank details, everything securely in that QR code. So it is meant to modernize payment transactions, and it's being used right now with EU and the Swiss currency, but it is something that is just ready to go big, so other countries use it as well. So the Swiss QR code, it is now built in with Rad barcode. This is just a barcode control which we have had, has probably 15 to 20 different modes in which we can render the barcodes, which could be anything from QR codes to all the different types of symbologies that we have when we render a QR code or a barcode. And this is just one more thing that we do, and you can just embed this in your app. And the good thing that I think Ed had mentioned, it's just guarantees compliance with all of your EU regulatory requirements. So nothing new to learn. It is the barcode.
Sam,
Sorry,
I wanted to
Ed,
say that your explanation was full of holes, but that would be a cheesy joke.
Good one. Good one. Okay.
I had to. I'm sorry.
Yes, you have to. Documents. Okay. I will mention this, I think, with WinUI as well. We have a big documents processing suite, which is a .NET standard library. It's independent of every other component suite that we make because it works everywhere. And what it lets us do is kind of cater to those unique enterprise workflows, because you all are dealing with documents. You are dealing with Word documents and PowerPoint and PDF and Excel spreadsheets. And it's important for your workflows to be able to bring that in your apps. And normally, if you have to do it by hand, it's just a lot of manipulation and standards that you have to deal with. It's all done for you. And all of our UI component suites essentially benefit from the document processing libraries. So lots of updates have gone in here. PDF viewers, they come with probably a dozen or so inbuilt fonts, but again, people have different types of fonts that they install on their machines, and they render that in their PDF. And if you want that consistency, you want that font in the PDFs that you are rendering, as well as the ones that you're importing, right? So we let you have a very easy way now of importing and registering those custom fonts. So you have a uniform way of bringing in any custom fonts, and it just gives you the high fidelity experience that you want in your documents. PDF processing also has flattening of forms, because again, in our PDFs, we have form fields that people can type in, but there are some times when you just want to disable it all, you want to make it read-only, but yet like preserve the values. You can now do it with one method. So that's nice. Word processing, we obviously cater to all of the latest and greatest like docx, but at the same time, the reality is people use older versions of Office, and you have those .doc and the .dot formats. You can bring them in now. We will let you import and convert over to the newest docx. There are the find feature when you pull up a Word document rendered on Xamarin or WPF or WinForms or Blazor, you want to search through it. That feature is enhanced now, so you can now search for words with or without case sensitivity. You can search the whole word or part of it, and you can also do regular expressions, which is a little hardcore, but hey, more power to your users, right? So you can do all of that now from inside Xamarin, and as you'll see, you can do that with other US suites as well. Now, I mention this all the time. We do have a collection of really good apps that we have put out in the store. So it's not just the Hello World apps. These are using MVVM frameworks if you need to. They're using some Azure services, just to kind of give you all an idea of what a real world app looks like, which uses Telerik UI in a meaningful way. So all of those apps, the ERP, the CRM, To Do, and Tag It, these are actually apps in the app stores. So go check them out. Just install them, play around with the UI, and see how we have envisioned building these things. The code for all of this is also open source on GitHub, so you have a place to go and look if you are interested. So with that, let me show you some Xamarin demos, and then we'll look into some desktop. Okay. So I'm going to go open up Visual Studio here real quick. While it's coming up, this is what I'm trying to show you. So let me head out to telerik.com, and if I go, hang on, let me open up Visual Studio here, get the process started, and then we'll come back to the browser. If I go into the mobile components here, you see Xamarin. If you want to play around with the stuff that I'm showing you, you can go straight to the store, or you can hit the big Try Now button. We give you all the binaries. We give you this sample code for this app that I'm showing you. It's the same app that's in the store, and you get to play around with the UI, the docs, and the demos. They're all right here for you to get started. So we'll get back over to Visual Studio when it's back. There it is. Okay, so here's an app which once you install it, again, we have installers for Windows and Mac. It gives you this example thing. So let me go show you where that installs. So in my documents, I have progress, and right here you will see, I don't have any other things here on this machine, but you see R2 2021. In here are your binaries. In here are your extensions, Visual Studio or VS for Mac. And then this KSF is the app that I'm showing you. You'll notice it has one solution file, and then it has separate folders for iOS, Android, the .NET Standard Library, and UWP, which I'm on a Mac here, so I have taken out the UWP. I don't have the latest Android SDKs either. I'm an iOS guy. I cannot bring Ed over to the walled garden, but someday maybe a purple hue is going to be enticing enough for him to come on. But here's the app that I'm showing you.
I have a machine ordered, Sam.
There you go. You're coming over to the dark side.
Bringing some Blazor with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me change the configuration because it looks like it lost the configuration. No, not the generic simulator. Hang on, where is my config? Where's my config?
You're loading up emulators. The lights are about to dim, folks.
There we go. Active configuration. Debug iPhone simulator. There we go. No, I don't want the generic one. Hang on. And
this is always the tricky part to mobile dev for me, is the whole, like, it's with web dev, it's running on your machine. Your machine essentially could be a web host if you wanted it to. It's not really any different from the stuff that's running on the server. It's just more scalable on the server. But mobile development's like a whole other device. I mean, it's not even the same CPU. It's generally an ARM processor. You got to have all this special stuff installed. Hypervisor if you're on Windows, and
well, I mean, if you want to do the Android thing. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to give it a build, and hopefully it picks up the simulator that I want it to run on. It's doing a thing. Any questions so far I can answer while we're waiting on a build here, Ed? Or any random questions you have in mind?
But seeing lots of Blazor questions still, nothing specific to Xamarin here. Our support team is doing a fantastic job, by the way, in the background answering these things. Folks asking about export to Excel in Blazor. We have that well documented with the document processing library, which is also part of Xamarin, by the way. So we have our DPL, document processing library, that handles any type of conversion between Office documents. So if you want to build PDFs, Excel files, Word docs, all that stuff on the fly from either other document sources or your own SQL data, those type of things, you can do that with any of the Telerik products, because they all include a license for the Telerik document processing libraries as well.
Indeed. Now, let's give it one more second. If not, we'll go switch over to WinUI and we'll give Visual Studio a little breather to finish up its build so I can run.
This is what you get for crossing the streams, Sam. You've got a Mac with Parallels, is it? Are you using Parallels for your Windows?
How else will you run both Windows and Mac all together?
You like to live dangerously, my friend.
But it's fun.
It is.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to the Blazor hybrid stuff myself, because I get to try some of the things that you're working on here.
All right, why don't I keep going, and then hopefully once Visual Studio is done, we can come back. And actually, this might be a good time to talk about this thing here that's on a lot of people's minds, right? So we get asked about this a lot. .NET MAUI, this is the evolution of Xamarin Forms. And we don't have anything to share right now because we keep getting asked, like, what's the story? It's very early days for Microsoft, and with the .NET 6 previews, preview 3 is out, we are going to hear more about things that build. All I can say is we are keeping a very close eye on this. We have like weekly calls. We are working very closely with Microsoft teams. So nothing to share yet, but hang in there. So hopefully we can share something soon. Okay. Let's see if we should keep going, or I can switch to desktop, but if Visual Studio is done, finally. Now, can I run this? No, it's still not No, go on.
Looks like we have a lot of questions about MAUI now.
Okay, go for it.
Like what Xamarin controls are coming into MAUI, what's going to be available there with Xamarin components. What's the future of the WinUI and Xamarin ecosystem with MAUI coming along? That type of stuff, Sam.
Okay, I will answer all of those things, but boy, it is a bummer that I can't run this thing, and I will. Yeah, you do.
It's got to be. Oh, it's got to be the JavaScript, Sam. It's always JavaScript.
Hang in there 1 second. No, can I run this? I cannot run this yet because it doesn't know which simulator, because it needs to pick a simulator. But while it's coming up, so folks, what the Xamarin team is doing is essentially redoing the way Xamarin Forms has worked. And we have had things like renderers, which are essentially wrappers, and then the Xamarin ecosystem renders native UI for iOS and Android. They're redoing the dependencies, so you're not as platform specific in the way the rendering magic works with Xamarin. They have handlers now with .NET MAUI, and it's just new for everybody. So they're trying to figure things out, just bring over basic Xamarin Forms controls, and I'm talking Microsoft here, to render nicely on top of .NET MAUI to make sure we can have the same type of performance, if not better, and have those same type of code render things for not just Xamarin Forms, because now we are opening things up, like you were saying with Blazor, with things that are more like an MVU pattern. So everything should be able to use some of those handlers across iOS, Android, and .NET MAUI will bring more confidence to have .NET and kind of XAML and C# code bases be able to target Windows and Mac desktop a lot more confidently. For Windows, it will use WinUI 3, which is the latest Windows stack, which I'll talk about in just a second. And then for Mac, we're going to use things like Mac Catalyst. So again, .NET MAUI is supposed to give you the same experience if you're doing iOS or Android today, but more confidence in reaching the desktop, and WinUI is part of that journey. So I'm going to close this down and hopefully give Visual Studio a little bit of a breather, and then pick up and see if I can get that simulator to work. But let's, since we did talk about WinUI, let's go ahead and switch to WinUI, and I'll try to come back to the desktop, to the mole stuff. Okay. So let's talk desktop, right? What's happening? A lot of things. So brace yourself, because we are talking WinUI, we're talking WPF and WinForms all together. But I'm not talking about other things, so I can at least breathe. It's not so rushed this time around. But Telerik WinUI, this is big because this is the future of Windows desktop development as Microsoft would like to have it. And immediately out of the gate, people are going to start asking about WPF and its future. All of that is fine. This is yet another option so that it's clean in terms of your UI canvas and your composition layers and the way things are rendered and the APIs that we use. So this is obviously the future. It is Fluent inspired in terms of a design system. So it feels very fresh, and most of the Microsoft apps that you see in stores are going to imbibe that design spirit, and we want to make sure we are helping you along. So this is the UI suite that's receiving a lot of love from us because it's new, and we are, again, making sure we do things right. It's not just about making a wrapper over something else we have. It's really doing it fresh so that we can run on UWP, which is the Windows Store runtime, as well as on .NET Native with Win32. That's so you can run the desktop. And again, to make sure things are Fluent inspired and you have the same set of experiences in terms of APIs when you're building things across all of your windows. So this UI suite is still relatively new for us. We launched this right when WinUI 3 came out with Project Reunion 0.5. So that was like a month and a half back, and then since then they have released 0.5.6, which is a new version of it. Our stuff runs right on top of that, and it has all of the things that you expect from a modern UI suite. It has MVVM support, so if you want to bring in a framework. It has built-in accessibility and localization. These are things we take very seriously. We go off Microsoft frameworks, and I think it's like a 60+ point checklist of things to make sure things are accessible, and then we have that updated examples app that I'm going to show you. So a lot of love, and it already has the heavy hitters that you do expect from us. Things like the data grid, which every enterprise desktop application likely needs. Charts and graphs, probably 24 of those things now. We don't count all the different variations of it, but Cartesian, polar, pie charts, and series charts, you name it, we have it. Different types of gauges, linear and radial, so everything is good. And we had a question before about virtualization. You can see that very heavily all through WinUI. It's just about how we bind to the UI and how we render. We are careful. Like if you give us 1 million records, we don't bind to 1 million records because it's not good for performance. As you scroll, as you click through, we bind to the next X number that makes sense for your app. So we are careful so we can give you the best possible performance. So what are some things that are new? We have the ribbon view, it's just more updated. A lot of love, a lot of details that has been poured into the ribbon view to make sure you have this just right. This is not something you have from the WinUI default toolset, and it's just something your users expect from a desktop application. And then we have the ribbon view really all baked in and ready for you. What's new? We have a brand new scheduler, which again is there in every one of our UI suites, but it just takes a lot of work. It's a really super powerful control that has all types of flexibility and precision built in, so you can zoom in and out. You can scroll through lots and lots of appointments in your calendar without any lag. The richness of the UX, how you kind of edit the dialogues, the appointments, be it inline or be it in a modal window. How do you group things? Support for iCal, dragging, snapping, recurring appointments, how you orient things. Everything is built in and ready to go for you. In terms of the scheduler. List view, this is again big because again, if you look at most mobile apps or most desktop applications, we end up a lot of times showing a list of things, right? And the list view is the perfect control for that. It is, it's the rad list view. It's like I said, it's a list view as you expect from us. So you do expect the feature richness and all of the things that you want baked in, like sorting, filtering, grouping, swiping and reordering, all types of animations, custom styling, virtualization, obviously, so it's performance tuned, header and footer. It is a full-fledged list view as you expect from us. So big controls coming in the WinUI suite. This is, again, something we saw in the Xamarin one. It's the Shadow, which is one of the quotes is fluent speaks in light and shadow, which is so true. That's the design language now we speak in, and it just makes such a subtle impact all throughout your UI for a modern look and feel, and all of the same things apply here. Color, position, transparency, radius, you can change them all. We have a HubTile. Now, this is something we are kind of holding on to from the Windows classic look and feel from like Windows 8 and Windows 10 early days, and it still works because it's such a rich UI. It's a dynamic UI for very fluid updates, meant to update itself, so you're inviting the user back. So that's the rad HubTile. So the goal is to keep the user engaged with the latest information, so you can keep inviting them back with back content and things that flip. So we have 6 inbuilt HubTiles now. There's a basic rad HubTile. There's an icon that you can put on it. Then there's the slider, which has a few things that you can put on it. There's a picture rotator, so you can go through. There's a mosaic, so you can have like 5 or 6 smaller tiles that flip through, as you can see in that example, and anything custom that you want to build. So all of these effects and customizations are also there, built in. Yes, we had it for UWP and other suites, but this is again redone to make sure it is Fluent inspired, and it's using the latest with Win32 and UWP. We have side drawers, again, the same like hamburger menu that opens up, great for navigation and tucking away all of your content. It's just ubiquitous. It's the right side drawer is here. And the built-in open and close animations are real nice. We have a NumericBox, which is small but super nifty control, and it's very much open to customization. So you can set the range of how much you want min or max, how much is the stepper when you increment or decrement. It has a read-only mode, it has a watermark, and it's culture aware. So particularly for numbers, you want to be very culture aware when you're running your app in other cultures. Right, so all of that is built in. So you can see how much stuff we did just for WinUI. I'm still rattling off here. Range slider. This is for you to pick range of values between a min and a max, and works with touch, works with your mouse, different types of orientations, snapping, and you can have tooltips, different types of formatting, deferred dragging as to like when you drag, where does the min and the max range change. You can customize the ticks, all of that is built in. We have a rad layout transform control, which is super fun because it's a container control. You can put anything else in it, and then you can have different types of transformations on that UI element, the whole thing. And there are like 5 different, and the most basic ones: rotate, scale, skew, matrix, and transform group. All of that is built in. You put this in as a container control, and the whole thing can be twisted and turned based on whatever your app is needing. So a lot of love in WinUI. We have the same Swiss QR control that we talked about for Xamarin, the rad barcode. It's here, and it's here to render all of the QR bill type barcodes for payment and issuing of invoices. Again, it encapsulates everything that you need for the payment system. We have a brand new WinUI ThemeEditor, which I'll show you really quick. But we have lots of themes now, and you likely would like to start from a theme and then customize things a little bit, the brushes and exactly how you want to do that, and save it. You can see a preview of not just our controls, but also the Microsoft controls as to how they look with the different types of colors, and then you get to save it and export it out. You just put it in your app, and then you have your visual designer of your entire theme for the color palettes. So pretty exciting stuff. And just a quick shout out again to the document processing libraries. This is really important for us because, again, it caters to Blazor, it caters to WinForms and WPF and Xamarin. It is for you to create, edit PDF, Word, and Excel, spreadsheets, everything in your .NET applications. This is a .NET standard library. So you can see the same benefits just come over to WinUI as well. In fact, WinUI, the document processing support is actually new, and now it's fully baked in. So it automatically inherits all of the things that have been done for document processing, PDF processing, word processing, and spread processing. It's all done for you. So you can have the same experiences. I'll try to maybe show you a quick demo of this. It's super interesting to see what you can do with document processing these days inside of your .NET applications. So that's a quick look at WinUI, and I'm already starting to talk fast because there's a lot to cover. Okay, so Ed, hold on to the lights again, because now I'm about to bring up my VM. It's going to be fine. What's the worst that can happen? Any questions I can answer?
Not seen anything in particular, Sam. It's nice to see that the tile component. I always liked the tiles. I was sad to see Windows Phone go away, but it looks like the tile metaphor's kind of been adopted across other platforms now. But it's cool to see that we can use it in our own apps. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So now let me pull up Visual Studio. Yeah, Windows Phone, don't start with the hurt. I spent quite a bit of time. But again, some of the UX was so nice that it made its way back. Actually, let me restart this app on admin mode because of some of the document processing. It actually uses read-write capabilities to write to your desktop. So I'm just going to relaunch Visual Studio. And
there was something on the last Apple Spring event that I don't remember what the feature was, but somebody was like, yeah, I had this in Windows Phone 7 years ago. I'm glad they finally got around to it.
Yes, Apple has those live tiles type support. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm trying to show you here is if you head out to Telerik, and if you Telerik.com, if you get to WinUI, this is an app that you can get the source code for. This is our sample app. Hit that button, and then we'll give you the source code for this app. And it actually comes in different modes. So you can run it on desktop, you can run it on UWP. Here I'm running it on desktop, and out of the gate you can see that it has that WinUI package thing. But then if you look at my dependencies here, and if I look at my packages, this is running on Project Reunion 0.5.6, so it's running on the latest bits here. So I can go ahead and fire this up. Actually, hang on, let me go to this, and let's see if it picks up the simulator. And then this time it's running on a local machine, so it should not Should not worry too much. There you go. I still want to get back to Xamarin. I have 20 minutes. I should be able to. Because it is so beautiful what we did with Xamarin. Okay, so here's the WinUI application, okay? And again, look through all of the UI that we have. If you go into what's new, it's going to mark exactly the things that are new. Swift barcode, this is exactly what you expect. That's the Swift barcode with all the information that you want to encode it, all right in here. Then we have the HubTile, which like from Windows Phone days, it's the whole gamut of things that flip. You can have a picture rotator, you can have a front and a back to the tile, and it's real nice. We can have the layout transform control, which is super nice to look at. So envision this as a container control for you to put something in it. And then I can change all of these things, like the rotation angle. I can change the X, I can change the Y, and I can change how it's skewed, X and Y. So it's real nice for you to be quickly able to do this with any container, any control you want to put inside of it. List view, again, like I said, it's the list view like you expect. This one has a staggered look, so you can select one thing and then it keeps on changing. But then on the list view, let me go back here. You also get the reorder feature, which is nice. So I can just click and I can drag and drop. So reordering works. Different types of selection modes like single, multiple, everything works. So again, it's a full-featured list view as you expect. NumericBox.
Those parent-child components are like the bread and butter of line of business apps.
So commonly used. So again, just a simple numeric up-down, but again, you can control the increment, decrement, you can control the jump, the min-max value. And what is nice is just some of the customizations of the culture awareness. This is really nice on how things render once you change the culture. So that's real nice. Let's see more. The RangeSlider, this one is like the range, like what you expect. But again, it has those features of how things react when you move things and how it's differing things, the range of values, the tick customizations, it's all there for you to use. Let's see, what else is for you? There's just so much to show, and the scheduler, of course. This is a big one, this release, because it's such a heavy and such a involved control. All of this is kind of built in for you. The week views, the month views, the different types of agenda views. This is all done for you, and you can zoom in and out. You can have a ton of stuff. Look at the number of views you had with the agenda. All of that is just done and ready for you out of the box. And you can give your users the full capability of editing your appointments just the way they want. So the scheduler is big, and of course there is the SideDrawer, the Shadow. Since we didn't look at Xamarin, let me show it to you here. That's the Shadow, right? It just gives you that subtle look, and it's just so enticing. And you can do this across all of the UI components in WinUI and in Xamarin. So that's the Shadow, and then let me show you the SideDrawer. Again, what you expect. It's just a hamburger. You can put that hamburger in any corner. You can control how this slide animation works, like left or right, and how much you can ease into it. The duration, you can control all of that. So you get it. This is all there. And oh, let me show you some of the processing things, which are so much fun. So word processing, if I go into the overview, envision like the rich text editor that you have, and once your user is done, you can generate Word documents right out of the gate. So notice how it's trying to save a docx file onto my desktop. So I can do that. I can do spread processing, where I have a bunch of like a grid, a bunch of tabular data, and I can export all of that into a single XLS, and it's done. Take a look at the zip library, which you have maybe X number of documents you are loading up, and then I can save a zip file. Let's just say on the desktop. Let's go ahead and save that, and then I can import something back out, that same archive that I did. Open that back up. It shows you how the compression is working all across. So this is WinUI. Take a look at any of this. The app is there for you to use. If I can show you something real quick, I have 15 minutes left. So if I drill down here into my examples, let's just look at any one of them. It's just a scheduler. Like it's broken out into the first loop, which is exactly the name of the page that you are on. You have a view model, you have some appointments, and if I look at the example.xaml, you can pull up the markup and actually take a look at how we are rendering this. You don't need to look at the code. In fact, on the app itself, we show you the code that actually renders the UI. But in case you wanted to open this up in Visual Studio, you can do that. And if you scroll down right up front, you can see the RadScheduler with all of the different types of UI properties and APIs that we have, selected spots and appointments and group description source. Everything can be data bound, the things that are meant to be data bound, and we can group things in different types of resources, collections. And so it's a full-blown RadScheduler. Take a look at the day, the week, the month, different types of view definitions. It is a full-blown RadScheduler that took a lot of time and energy from the team, and we're super glad to bring you the ListView, the scheduler, and some of the big enhancements with WinUI. So WinUI definitely is the future going forward with Windows development, but the other stuff isn't going away as well. So, and in fact, we are pouring in more love to make sure you can be as productive as you want. So let me go over here. But before I move on, let's do a quick poll here. Since we just talked about MAUI, we talked about WinUI. What do you want to use going forward? Which one of these things do you think you might use this year? Yeah, maybe the next 12 months. And going once, going twice, and done, done, done. All right, let's see what you all have to say.
Yeah, I didn't want to. Oh, wow, that's about as.
That's great.
I didn't want to influence anything, but I was going to say I'm going to be looking at MAUI. I think it's really interesting, and I can't wait to get my hands on. Like, I've got a Mac Mini coming. I'm going to hook it all up together and do some desktop on Windows and iOS on the Mac, and see what I can run on all the platforms.
See, here's the nice thing. You don't actually have to choose, because all of these things are going to work together. .NET MAUI is going to rely on WinUI to reach the Windows desktop. If you want to do straight up Windows and you don't care about anything else, then of course go with WinUI or WPF and you're going to be fine. But if you are looking for cross-platform solutions, then .NET MAUI is going to use WinUI to reach Windows. And then Blazor plays into .NET MAUI because some of the ways in which Blazor Hybrid is going to be bootstrapped is based on .NET MAUI. So good things happening this year. Okay, what about the other stuff, right? Should we drop all of this other stuff and move on? No, absolutely not. .NET Framework is here for the next like 10 years. And WPF and WinForms are super productive. And here's the thing that we don't talk about often. They run on the latest .NET, right? So what is stopping you? You can have XAML islands. You can have the latest inking support, Canvas. You can have the latest web view embedded inside of WPF and WinForms. Runs on 3.1 LTS, and our stuff right now runs in .NET 6 Preview 3. Microsoft has some nice upgrade assistance, and we like to help out as well. So pretty much all of the stuff that we do, there's also future facing. When you install it, when you download it, you see NuGet packages, you see binaries for running on .NET Framework, .NET Core 3, and .NET 5, and .NET 6, right? So choose your runtime, and we'll help you up-convert your apps whenever you are ready to utilize some of these new features. So a lot of love being, again, poured into WPF and WinForms as well. So quick look at WPF. We had a card view last release, and we have added a bunch of new things. We have made things read-only. We have added accessibility with some keyboard support. We have added commanding for MVVM, touch support a little bit more, but all of the other stuff that was there is still there. It's just a very fluid UX to present a lot of information in little card-like formats, and it's completely customizable. This thing is out of beta now, so it's official and production ready. We also have the barcode. It makes its way everywhere, right? Because it's important for EU and Switzerland in particular. It's the one combined barcode that renders everything. Now for WPF, though, I do want to make a distinction. We had a barcode, which was, well, we actually have multiple barcodes for different types of barcodes. We are combining all of them into a single barcode control. So again, the old one is being deprecated. So if you are using it, please look to upconvert it. Should not be too much work, just a change of name. The APIs remain about the same, but the new implementation gives us that faster rendering, and that single barcode now has like 24 different types of barcodes that it can render, including the Swiss QR code, the data matrix, and all the different types. So there's a thing called intelligent mail, which I did not know. different types of barcodes and QR codes. It's all there for you in a single control. So if you're using WPF, that was the big change, because it's now one as compared to different types of barcodes. We introduced 2 new themes last time around. We had Material and we had VS 2019. Ed, like, I'm not the biggest dark mode fan, but I can see how enticing it is for purely for accessibility reasons. So we keep making more things dark mode. All of the Xamarin UI now supports dark mode with one switch of a button, and these 2 themes also get dark mode. We have a rich text box, which again is something you can embed very nicely inside of your ribbons. Now it can bring in different types of shapes, and you get to style them with whatever solid or gradient or different types of fills that you want, right? So you can see like WPF is going strong, and we keep on doing more things. And again, the document processing libraries are here. We have like 4 or 5 really polished components or apps really that are built with WPF. We have the color generator that was running on .NET 5 last release, and we were using Prism. But this release, we have also brought out the ERP and the Outlook inspired demos over onto .NET 5, making them run on the latest. If you are using the latest and greatest Visual Studio, though, in fact, the VS 1610 preview, they have a new thing called the suggested actions, which is when you select a component and you right-click on it to see your context menu, it caters to give you the exact things that you need that are the most relevant ones. So we suggest we have that across all of the WPF suite as well. So when you right-click on a grid or any type of a callout, any WPF UI component, we give you the exact thing that you hopefully should be needing, but the other ones are there in your properties window as well. So a lot of love in WPF. WinForms, what's going on? Again, this is super productive, so keep doing stuff in WinForms if that's what's keeping your enterprise workflow going. Hello Rad callout, it's just a callout control that is fully customizable. It will hold anything else you want in it. Panels, different types of user controls, and it's just an interactive, nice UX. So use it to show additional information to the user, any types of warnings or hints, anything to keep the user engaged. And they can be triggered with a click or a tooltip, so it's your call. Swiss QR code makes its way in WinForms as well. You can see that it's all over. And this one has the Office 2019 theme, which we had introduced 1 release back. Now it has 2 different themes. You can see that little diagram here. It's showing you the cutoff with a gray theme and a dark mode. So 2 different modes for your existing theme, now with just 2 different palettes. So a lot of things that have gone in, and document processing love, it's there as well. Rich text editor does now content control, so you can bring in things like calendars and embed them. So import export is a little better with OpenOffice things. This one I'm really, it's a little something that kind of makes you very interested at times. The embedded levels, which you see so often with web apps, it's just it's an input control, and it's just so much better than watermark, because when you get focus in it, the thing just moves up. It lets you type, and it's just such a beautiful UX. That's called an embedded level. So on any of your input controls, you can stick that on and just have a nicer user experience for your users. And like I said, all of the document processing, it's there for you as well. So real quick look at WPF and WinForms, shall we? But before we go on, I forgot to show you one quick thing with WinUI, and that is the WinUI ThemeEditor, which we quickly mentioned, but I didn't get to show you. This is an app that you can install, and what it does, it shows you all of our UI, right? The pagination, the sliders, the radius controls, everything is here, and you have these color presets. So start with, pumpkin, why not? And everything just changes. And we show you all of our controls. We show you how the grid would look like. We show you how the ribbon would look like, the scheduler, which is, again, the newest control and very involved. And we also show you some of the MS controls. Like these are some of the inbuilt controls in WinUI, but you get to see how, if you chose that color preset and that theme, you can customize the base and the primary and the secondary colors. How would that look like? And then you get to export and then just include that in your app. So real quick, WPF, what's changing? And looks like I'm going to be running a little out of time again. There's just a lot of stuff in mobile and desktop, but tomorrow morning on the Twitch stream, Ed, I want to take a little bit more of your time and talk about Xamarin, because I didn't get to show off Xamarin stuff. which was
I'm willing to learn some Xamarin that's something I don't know a whole lot about.
Yeah. So card view, this is the thing that we did last release. It's just cards. You get to customize it and you get to bind it just like you bind to huge data grid or list view. It's just a little bit more professional looking, just includes a lot of information, nice and concise. This thing's out of the gate now. Barcode, this is that, not this example here, but somewhere down here, the Swiss QR code. That's the example we're talking about it, so it's all there for you.
Before you get too far ahead, Sam, yeah. The labels that you showed on that input, are those available in WPF?
The labels on the input. Oh, the embedded labels?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, this may be one of those things that WinForms gets it first, but again, like you heard Ed say, like if we do something once and it works and all of you like it, we will be happy to do it on other VR platforms as well.
Yeah, we'll let support answer that one. If it's something that people want, it can go into the feedback portal so we can vote it up and get it put in.
Yeah, and our WPF and WinForms PMs are still on the call, so maybe I misspoke, but I think that's a new one for WPF or WinForms rather. The callout feature, this one is like you expect. So you get a callout tour. Again, great for like doing like a wizard type tour where you can kind of guiding people through, and you can click on things, you get a tooltip, and you get different ways of interacting with it. That's just the callout. So the good thing about all of this is when you're running these apps, and these apps are actually live in the stores, so you can actually look into the example. You can actually look into, you know, let me go into the callout settings thing, and then we actually give you the code right here. So you don't actually, this is the floating callout that you see. So we'll close out of that. So you can obviously pull up the code in Visual Studio, but if you just wanted to scroll through and see how we have rendered it, we give you the UI right there, including the code behind and the designer files. So take a look at how we're rendering it. Anything that is marked new is new. Anything that's marked yellow, updated. Those are some of the updates that we have gotten into either WPF or WinForms.
And to get a little meta here, Sam, that code editor is our syntax editor.
Yes.
We're using in the app.
Absolutely. And again, if you need to throw in any type of an editor, be it for Markdown, be it for any type of code inside of your application, there is the syntax editor, which is beautiful. Okay, so I am 2 minutes out. I'm not going to try to bring my iPhone simulator back, but if you can join us, folks, tomorrow morning, I'm going to steal some time from Ed to show you a little bit more of the Xamarin stuff, but hopefully what you see is just a lot of love being poured into mobile and desktop. So anything, Ed, quickly, Blazor or otherwise that we can help answer?
We have an event we're planning for next month. We did it last year. It's called Blazing into Summer. So roughly first week of June. Keep your eye on our communications for that. We have, this is the first, I think, we're announcing it to the public. We have Daniel Roth is going to join us and talk about .NET 6. So again, keep an eye on our Twitter channels and emails and things, because we're going to be sending out information about that pretty soon.
Very nice. And to follow it up, just to not be left behind and let Ed run the world with Blazor, we are doing a .NET MAUI event in July, where all of the MAUI suspects will be joining us to talk about all things MAUI. So I think this year, more than anything, Ed, it's just a great time to be a .NET developer. Like so many cool things happening across Blazor, across MAUI, across Xamarin, WinUI, and it's all coming together with .NET 6.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we are almost at time. Ed, anything else pressing that you want to mention?
Nope, just tune into Twitch on the Code It live stream and see what we're going to chat about this week. We'll do some live Q&A, live demos, and we'll hopefully have that emulator booted up by then.
I will fire it up like an hour in advance before we go. No, but thank you so much, folks, for hanging out here with Ed and me. Like those are again our social handles for you to get hold of us. Use the hashtag #Telerik. And speaking of Twitch, I actually have to go and grab a quick lunch, and then I'll be right back because we start at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time right here on Code It Live. So twitch.tv Code It Live. Come and hang out with me. I'll have 3 fantastic guests with me today, and we're going to talk about all things. Before we go into the webinar tomorrow, we'll talk about reporting, we'll talk about Test Studio and Fiddler and JustMock. So come and join us in half an hour on Twitch. But otherwise, thank you folks for hanging out with us, and we are riding on the shoulder of giants here, our engineering teams, our PMs, our testing teams, our marketing teams. We all come together to bring you all this love every release, and we are delighted that we are able to make you just a little bit more productive, and you keep sharing your love. Use the forums, use the feedback, keep talking to us, and we are here for you. All right, so that's it. Thank you, Ed, and thank you, everybody. So we shall see you on Twitch in half an hour and back on the webinar tomorrow morning. Okay, so until then, stay safe and stay well, stay productive. We shall see you on the next one. Okay. Bye-bye.
Good stuff. Good luck, Sam.